gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's June the 26th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined by the entire team this morning, Matt Shodell, Stephen Wagner, and Izubee Charles, as we discuss the news of the day, which today is the news of the weekend. There was so much going on. You could see the bags under everybody's eyes. Stephen and Izubee in particular got absolutely no sleep this weekend, okay? And the only thing that will be worse will be when they go on vacation and they party, because this was a non-stop grind this weekend, and we're going to tell you guys all about it and give you some of the highlights on this show this morning. And I got to start with the official visitors. It was Miami's biggest official visit weekend of the year, and a whole lineup of guys came. We have stories on every single visit, detailed stories on every single visit on the website. They've been there since yesterday. If you have not had the chance to read them yet, please make sure you do. A lot of really good stuff in there. Give you a lot of really good insight on all the work that Mario Cristobal and his staff did this weekend. Guys, before we start talking about some of these individual recruits, I just wanted to get each of your overall thoughts on the weekend and how Miami did, what type of feedback you felt the kids were giving. Stephen, let me start with you. It began, I guess, at 6 a.m. Sunday morning when some of these visits started winding down, continued through the morning. You spoke to several of these guys. How did Miami do this weekend?
Yeah, I think things went well, and I do expect some news to be coming out here in the next couple of days. I do think that substantial progress was made this weekend. I think I definitely think that there were some parts that moved around, and I think that we'll be hearing some things here in the next few days. I think the weekend, and I know I've said this after every single official visit weekend, the same thing, the visit went well and Miami's in good shape with so-and-so and so-and-so. But the fact of the matter is, these kids wouldn't be official visiting if Miami didn't have a really good chance to land them to begin with. There wouldn't be a story if Dylan Stewart simply said, this visit was a waste of time. I'm not sure why I came here to begin with. Miami's not a school that's on my radar at all. Or Judd Anderson said, you know what, screw Miami. I'm just going to go ahead and decommit. So Miami, I think, is continuing to move in the right direction. But I think as we'll see, and as we said with some of these recruits and these individual update stories, Miami's also kind of hit a wall with some of these guys where there's not a lot more that Miami can do from a relationship building standpoint and from the standpoint of getting these guys onto campus and trying to sell them on the whole vision of Miami and everything the great university and city has to offer. With some of these kids, I think we have reached a point where they need to see Miami put together some wins on the field. They need to see Miami, get off to that hot 5-0 start. They need to see Miami beat Texas A&M the way that, frankly, I think they should. And they want to see an offense and a defense that's capable of making big, explosive plays and putting guys in the draft. And so I think that's really kind of the biggest thing that Miami is going to face coming out of the summer official visits and going into the fall.
I think your wall analogy is a great one, Stephen. The thing that we hear over and over from everybody, parents, recruits, is how much they love the staff at Miami. They love the chemistry. They love the vibe. They love the variety of the personalities that Mario Cristobal has put together. And it really is like a really nice mix. I mean, it's not a situation where everybody is like everybody. All different types of personalities and different skill sets that they bring to the table to encompass the entire recruiting effort. Izubee, You've been speaking to so many of these guys, not just this weekend, but in the previous weeks. Your thoughts on where Miami is right now in general in recruiting and the vibe that you're getting from the recruits?
I'm going to do my best Matt Shodell impression. It was awful. Next question. Okay, no, in all honesty, I do feel like it was a good weekend, but I mean, I feel like you really can't grade or, say, leverage how well this was because we really didn't get any commitments. And hopefully today and throughout this week, we can kind of see, who really liked their visits, not just saying, oh, it was a great visit. I really like Miami, blah, 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 the cut and dry, kind of response that we've been getting throughout every other weekend. But I do think Miami did make some steps in the right direction with a couple of people. I would say Red Morgan is the guy that they like, kind of an under-radar guy from Alabama. He came in, has a really good relationship with Coach St. Felix, who was formerly in North Alabama, and Caleb Odom, another guy that I feel like Miami kind of, made a good impression on with. But I think it's been, obviously kind of similar to the last 3 weekends that, Miami had official visitors. They really like it. Miami's doing great this, Miami's doing great that. But at the end of the day, there wasn't really any, kids that are wowed away enough to say, hey, I'm committing right now on the spot. I want Miami to be, my school for the future. I want to shut down my recruitment right now. So I feel like we can kind of get a better perception of how this weekend really, really went in the coming days. But I do feel like Miami's going to land a couple guys this week from, this visit and the last one as well. So looking forward to this week to kind of get a real good grasp of how everything went the last few days in Coral Gables.
It's interesting. The coaching staff's getting ready to go on what's supposed to be a vacation. It's never a vacation when Mario Cristobal is your head coach, okay? Last year in July, I think they got 4 or 5 commitments while the coaches were on vacation. There is going to continue to be recruiting action here in the coming weeks. There is no question about it. But Izubee, the one thing that I thought was interesting that you said was that, and the one thing I've noticed is that this cycle of recruits, maybe it's the unlimited official visits that they're able to go to so many places, and they don't want to commit because they want to keep taking these visits. I mean, visits are a lot of fun for these kids. I mean, they're getting wined and dined. They're staying in nice hotels. There's parties. There was another epic party this weekend at Mario Cristobal's house that everybody was raving about. These are fun visit weekends. If they commit, not as many schools are going to want them to visit. So I think that is slowing down the train in some of these cases. At the same time, there are some schools that are getting several commits. So I think it's getting to the point now for Miami that they need to figure out who's in the boat and who's not in the boat. Okay. And they'll wait for guys like Jeremiah Smith, and we're going to talk about him in a minute where he stands. Guys like that they'll wait for, but they're not waiting on everybody because they need to fill the class. They need to know who's coming and not coming. They need to know where their needs are. So I think that as these coaches go on vacation, they're going to be continuing to have conversations with all these kids. The recruiting will not stop, and I think we will see some commits here over the next 3 or 4 weeks. Matt, you've been doing this with us here at CaneSport for at least 3 or 4 decades now. How's it look to you? Does it look the same? Does it look different? Are you seeing an improvement? Are they getting better players? I was talking to somebody today, and it was a very astute conversation, quite frankly. We were talking about receivers and how the current receivers on the team probably are undervalued by the general public because they've never been put in the right situations to shine. And there is an expectation with Shannon Dawson coming in that these receivers, the Jacoby Georges of the world, the Colby Youngs of the world, are going to thrive this year and play at a higher level than they've ever shown, and that several of these guys may have draft status by the end of the season. So this was the conversation that I was having. However, as it turned to recruiting, and you look at like some of these guys that are being recruited, and I'm not looking to diminish any of them, but is Ja'Cory Barney any different than Jacoby George? Is we can Josiah Trader, is he better than Colby Young? And these are all judgments that they have to make because this program can't take a step forward until it upgrades the level of players in the program. So yes, there's the hope that these guys, and I only mentioned a couple of them, continue to elevate their game and play better. But at the end of the day, you got to get the Jeremiah Smiths of the world if this Miami program is going to start looking like Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State. So Matt, your perceptions on where you think things are now, how they are going.
Well, I always like to keep it real. And again, this is another one of these visits. This magic keeps happening. Every visitor loved the visit. It was fantastic, but there's no commitments yet. That's okay. But here's where this is how I sort of view this, right? Yeah, they'll tell you all the time, football is war. Football recruiting is war. It just is. And if you turn on your TV over the weekend, all you're seeing is, Putin and this guy trying to infiltrate the system and take over. And that's what Mario's trying to do to the system. If you want to say Saban and Putin are the same thing right now, that doesn't bother me, because right now Saban really is the dictator of college football. He sort of has it under his thumb. And guys like Cristobal are trying to march down Calle Ocho and take over from Saban. And you got to hope he doesn't get put in Belarus or something. I don't know what that would be in my analogy. I don't know, somewhere really bad, I guess.
Back to Oregon,
Gary's basement. And so it's not easy, is my point. It's not easy to do this sort of thing, to take over from the guy who's at the top. I mean, picture trying to topple Putin, right? That's what Mario's trying to do. That's, in war terms, that's what Mario's trying to do. You don't just do that overnight. This guy tried and turned around after 12 hours. You're just don't kill me. Please don't poison me in Belarus, and he's gone. So, you don't want Mario to fail. So with that in mind, I'm a numbers guy. And I think I always have hated the star system in the past. The star system now is actually much more accurate than it used to be, because it used to just be a couple of guys, honestly, sitting in Tennessee that would be I watched 5 minutes of this guy's film. He's a 4-star. Now it's a serious business. These guys go to multiple camps. They get eyes on these people like you wouldn't believe, and they actually get paid decent salaries instead of peanuts. So they sort of know what they're talking about. And yeah, there's still going to be misses. You're still projecting at the end of the day. But like I always said, 4 stars and 5 stars are rated that way nowadays because they are more college ready than 3 stars. That's just a fact. If you're 6'6", 325-pound offensive tackle, you have a better chance of being a 4 or 5 star than being a 6'3", 285-pound offensive tackle, because you're not as ready. You're going to need to take a year to get stronger, more physical. Maybe your technique's not as good. They look at these things now live, not just off some grainy tape that Gary Ferman used to sell out of his garage back in the day when we used to make those videos, right, Gary?
It wasn't the garage, but we used to make these recruiting videos.
No, you'd make them. I'd have Gary be call every high school coach of every player and have them send his highlight tape on a VHS tape. And then Gary would have some dude splice it together for $50 and we'd sell them through the mail. And that was the highlight tapes.
That was before we had the internet and Huddle and everything, where we had everything highlighted.
Some people, I'm sure some people watching this certainly remember that. We
used to have 900 lines too, remember? Man?
Yeah, I remember, of course.
You young guys were in diapers when we used to do these 900 lines. It was great. Somebody would call 1-900. I think it was 236 Kane was our number or something like that. And they would dial in and they would hear the recruiting updates on their phone line. And it would cost $1.99 a minute or something, and we'd be given these recruiting reports because we didn't have a website back then or anything. It was really
we had people call the office just for recruiting updates for free, and Gary would be call the 900 line. We're not giving it away for free.
That is not a true story. They already knew to call the 900 line. That was how we disseminated recruiting.
Hey, when I called, you made me call the 900 line. So don't tell me it's not true. Anyway, I was trying to make a point. Okay, here's my point. I was, before Gary sidetracked everything he always does.
They're saying did you guys use rotary phones back then too? They're thinking man, I can't even imagine what it was like to live back in that day.
Gary, I use everything for work on this phone right here.
Yeah. You used to turn it and you
turn. There's no such thing as a cell phone back then.
They don't even know, Gary. Remember you used to turn if the number was 516-883, you go broop and go broop, and you go broop broop. And at the very last number, if you do the wrong thing or not all the way, you have to start over from the beginning. It would take 5 minutes. It would take 5 minutes to make a phone call. Anyway, what I was trying to say before.
I wasn't born back then.
Can I at least talk about recruiting so people won't yell at me on the internet like they always do? So far, Mario has 10 out of 12 commitments that are 3 stars, and reflect upon, again, what I said about 4 stars and 5 stars, okay? That's just a fact. Like 10 out of 12 guys right now in the On3 rankings are 3 stars. I'm not going to mention exactly who some of these other guys are, but there's a couple of guys I think are going to wind up at Miami. And one of them, we're not going to ruin announcements, but one of them, when you're at, when you're like waiting for a recruit and you see all the coaches cheering for the recruit as he's walking out the door, like you have a pretty good idea something happened. That's not normal. We're not going to say who it is, but like there's commitments that are going to be coming. Okay. That in particular person is a 3-star. There's another guy who's a 3-star that I have pretty good information is going to be in this class. So now you're talking about 12 out of 14 commits that are 3 stars. I looked at Mario's 2 years at Oregon prior to coming to Miami. Okay. And Mario's class last year was not all 3 stars. Majority was not 3 stars. At Oregon in 2022, before he came here, 11 of his 17 were not 3 stars. They were above 3-star status. 6 of 17 were 3 stars. The prior year, only 4 of 23 that he took were 3 stars. Now, when you're talking about 12 of 14 are 3 stars, that's not Mario Cristobal recruiting to me. Like, I just want to keep it real. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if these guys all of a sudden have said, these guys are underrated as 3 stars. We see them as 4 and 5 stars. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they're having an NIL situation because, as we know, one of the major NIL guys has sort of gone on the back burner for a little bit right now, and it is what it is. Or maybe it's just like this is what you can get because it's difficult when you win a 5 and 7s. It's a little more difficult to recruit. Now, can Mario still get a bunch of 5 stars? Yes. It's June. Like it's June. People freak out. Where are the 4 and 5-star commitments? Like 5 3-stars could drop off if a bunch of 4 and 5 stars want to come. Recruiting's not over. A few years ago, we'd be like, June, like, why are we even talking about recruiting in June? It's just everything's moved up. Everything's so much more important in June now, and I get it. But, we'll have a lot more clarity, I think, over the next 4 weeks on who Miami's getting. I have a feeling that they're going to be getting a lot of 3 stars and a couple of 4 stars here and there, maybe a couple of 5 stars. But right now, best guess, if they have a 25-player class, I'm going to go ahead and project that more than half the class is a bunch of 3 stars. And like fans don't want to hear it, but they can be great too. Like Miami was built on 3 stars. Ray Lewis didn't even have a scholarship offer from any other program. He was a late qualifier, and Miami discovered him, and took him. Like Miami was built on this. It's okay. And you know what? It's even more satisfying when you beat Alabama and Putin with a bunch of 3 stars and they've all got a bunch of 5 stars. That's how you march into Red Square and take over, man, with a bunch of 3 stars who are hungry, not a bunch of 5 stars who just think that they can show up.
That was an incredible news story this weekend, but we don't have time to talk about that. We have way too much to cover here. Hey, by the way, if you guys like this show, like this channel, hit the subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube, grow our audience and expose more people to Matt Shodell. And more so than anything, if you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please come join our community of fans. Your subscriptions allow us to create nonsense like this for you guys every single day, and even more significantly, bring you some of the most unbelievable coverage that you will ever see of a recruiting weekend like what we had on our site this weekend. And I hope you guys are subscribing to the site and are getting to enjoy that. It's an enormous amount of work and effort that goes into that stuff. And this weekend in particular was a very special one for CaneSport.com. And I hope that you guys are all experiencing it by way of your subscriptions, and we greatly appreciate it. All right. Before we talk about a couple of the individual stories in this conversation, I think there's a couple of things we have to unwrap here that have come up. And the first one, Matt, begins with you. You just suggested, either intentionally or non-intentionally, that the 2023 Miami recruiting effort is struggling in the form of 3-star recruits.
Well, it's 2024 class. It's 2023 right now. You're correct, but it's a 2024 class.
Well, obviously, I mean 24 class. I'm talking about this recruiting effort in 2023 that is going to fill the 2024 class. I think you're kind of suggesting it might be struggling a little bit.
It depends on your perception.
I'm not, I'll get accused of homerism or whatever. I'm not sure that it's struggling. I think it's different. But do you think it's struggling?
I didn't say struggle. I literally laid out this might just be a case where these 3 stars are actually 4 and 5 stars, guys that really want to work hard. Like Mario has a plan. And if his plan is to find underappreciated, angry guys who thought they should be better, and Miami coaches who are great evaluators think they're 5 stars, I'd rather have those guys than actual 5 stars, because those guys aren't just 5-star athletes and players. They have a chip on their shoulder, and that's how Miami was built.
Have you taken a look out there? Have you taken a look at Samson Okinola? Have you taken a look at Francis Mauigoa?
Yeah.
Trust me, you're not passing on any of these 5-star guys.
What are you understanding again? I didn't say they're not 5 stars. I said if these 3 stars,
3 stars than the 5 stars.
if these 3 stars are actually Samson Okinola, if these 3 stars are actually Francis Mauigoa, and they have a chip on their shoulder for being 3 stars, that's even better. That's literally what I said. Like, I don't understand how you twist my words into things I don't say. Like, that's great. But if these guys are actually 3 stars, if they're actually average high-level college student athletes, not great championship-level college student athletes, that's not great. And, everyone knows Mario, he likes stars as much as the next guy. He wants fans to be excited about a recruiting class. He doesn't want a recruiting class ranked 30th or 20th in the country. He wants a recruiting class ranked number 1, like every coach does. It excites the fan base. It makes other recruits excited. It makes the team excited about the future. It's just great. So it's not by design that right now Miami's ranked, I don't know, Stephen Wagner memorizes this stuff to the decimal point. They're not ranked great. It's not by design, okay? But if his plan is what I said, to find 5 stars hidden as 3 stars with a chip on their shoulder, like, I'm all for that. And hopefully that's what this is. And this isn't just a case of, NIL money is questionable. We're not going to win this battle for this 5-star with Ohio State. We're not going to be able to flip this Georgia kid. Like, I hope that's not what it is. But again, you don't know. All I know is Mario's a great recruiter. Mario's going to get the greatest players he can get. And he knows where players stand because he's honest with them. They're honest with him back. And right now it appears that honesty is 3-star level.
Well, I think that it's a little bit different in that committing to Miami coming off a 5-7 season is not a slam dunk. It's just not. And they are going to have to prove themselves to some of these kids this fall. I mean, it's just not as easy as you would like it to be. That's number one. I think the unlimited visits that the kids are taking is prolonging some of the recruitments. I think that the kids are enjoying taking their visits, but we do have to qualify that by saying that some schools have not had a problem getting commitments. So, but I do think it's a little bit different. I think obviously a lot of these recruitments that are hanging out there are critical. Izubee and Steven, I'm going to come back down to you now. Is Miami, Steven, I'll start with you. Is Miami pushing hard for commits at this point, or are they not pushing hard enough? Should they be pushing harder, or is playing the waiting game with the Jeremiah Smiths, the decisive traders, et cetera, okay?
So with Jeremiah Smith, they don't have a choice but to play the waiting game. Jeremiah and
Matt, do you see that how he just turned that on, man? It's like I said, Steven, go, man. He just like, whoa. Go ahead, Steven.
I really don't think Miami has much of a choice but to play the waiting game with Jeremiah Smith. Him and his camp, they've made it clear that there's not very much else that Miami can do. From a relationship building standpoint and from a visit standpoint, and just showing more generally what the University of Miami can offer. Now, if they want to have a chance with Smith, they're going to have to show real success in the season, and they're going to need to show serious improvement at the wide receiver position. They need to see that Kevin Beard can actually develop receivers, and they need to see that Shannon Dawson can have an explosive offense that's capable of scoring points in a big way. I just don't think Miami's going to really have a shot with Smith other than that. So with Smith, basically, we're on hold with him at least until the fall. Maybe if things go well, all of a sudden we're revisiting this conversation in November or late December. If Miami does a few things, catches a few breaks. then all of a sudden I think maybe that conversation changes a little bit. His father did tell me we're going to keep an eye on them this fall. We're going to watch some of their games, and we're going to need to see what they can do. With Trader, I also think Miami really doesn't have a choice but to wait this thing out. He's been really adamant throughout his recruitment that he's planning on taking this thing to the end. And as far as I know, nothing on that front has changed. He didn't visit any schools during the month of June. I should say he didn't officially visit any schools during the month of June. He noted that his mother was having a health issue, and that was the reason why he didn't visit any schools. So it's looking like he's probably going to be taking in-season official visits, which means, again, Miami has to play the waiting game with him. Because the more that we get into Trader's recruitment, the more it really looks like this is going to be something that we're sitting on and that we're waiting on until November, December, late in the fall, sometime in the winter, or something like that. More generally, though, I've noticed that we haven't really seen Miami hardcore pushing for recruitments because they more want these kids to come to these conclusions by themselves. They're not sitting these kids down and saying, we want you to commit like right this second. Will you commit to us? It's more a conversation of, hey, there's what's going to be the thing that separates like one program from another program for you, and what are we going to need to continue to show you in order to really have that shot. And they're hoping that if they show these kids enough, eventually these kids are just going to finally come to the conclusion that, yeah, this is Miami's the place that I want to be. Now, of course, Miami is still going to bring up committing whenever they're having these conversations, and Miami's still going to apply a little bit of pressure. But this idea that Miami's coaches are sitting down and saying, hey, we want you to commit right now, where they're pressuring them into commitments. I wouldn't really say pressuring is the right word, but it is certainly something that is being discussed. Because Miami does talk with all of these kids that they have official visits on. What do we need to do to get you here? Why, at the end of the day, what's going to be the difference maker for you? Basically, what are we going to have to do to make you a Hurricane? And we do want you on campus. When can we get you back on campus again? It's really just this really consistent effort that they're hoping pays dividends, but it's really not Miami staff to try to pressure kids into committing before they arrive at these decisions on their own.
Well, there will be a recruit barbecue at the end of July, okay? And they'll all be invited. And we're going to know a lot by who shows up, I think, if they're not committed yet. Because that'll be a big event for Miami. And if somebody's not there, it probably is not the greatest sign in the world, because they will have ample notice of this barbecue. I'm sure they've all already been invited. So, we'll see what happens there. All right, let's talk. We're not going to talk about every story. I mean, there's just way too many of them. But some of them are worthy of a little conversation here on the show this morning. Let's start with Juan Minaya, because he made a prediction to us that 4 guys from this visit weekend who are not yet committed will commit. Didn't say which 4 he thought they were, but he felt like what he was witnessing was things going very, very, very well. Guys, do we take a clue from Juan?
Is that an open question?
Yeah, Izubee. We might as well let you take that one. You just sit there so nice and quietly and politely while Steven and Matt rambled on.
You want me to take a guess on one of the 4?
Yeah, who do you think? What do you think?
So that's a good question right there. I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything or kind of give something away that one of the 4. I think if I were to guess, I'm going to go with someone I mentioned last week, possibly Ja'Cory Barney. I mean, feels like Miami's doing all the right things with him.
I'll back that one up. Go ahead.
kind of just obviously really turned up the heat. He canceled an official visit to a school that he previously had in his top 3 with Illinois and took that to Miami. I really think that could be one of those 4 guys that Wagner is kind of joking around with us and toying us and kind of teasing us with that. But coming into this weekend, I thought if Miami did all the right things, impressed Ja'Cory Barney's family, which he said, which was a big part of his recruitment, that they would really, take the cake as his number 1 team. He already said Miami's at the top. He also said if they recruited me the whole time, they'd be the clear-cut number 1 team. So if I were to guess one of those guys, Wagner has told us is committed or will commit, I'm going to go with Ja'Cory Barney out of Miami Palmetto.
How about OJ Frederick?
Steven, you spoke with him. How did you say that one?
I think something could be up there. I'm a little bit hesitant to go all the way in, but I will say that I definitely think something is up, and I'm willing to label him as a recruit to definitely keep a very, very close eye on. I do feel good about him specifically as things come out this weekend, just kind of some intel that I was able to gather while I was checking things out and talking to him. I do think that there is a very good chance that something happens there. I'll leave it at that.
I've got another one, Zuri Madison. I think that one's gonna.
I like Zuri. I definitely see something happening there as well.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Ricky Knight. Miami FSU battle. How do you think this weekend went? Is Miami in there, or are the rumors that he's going to commit to Florida State? Do they have some life?
That's that's been really tough for me to assess because Miami's made it clear that he's their guy for this class. They've brought him to campus more than any other recruit in 2024. Keep in mind, this is a 3-star cornerback from West Palm Beach. But Miami absolutely loves him. He's been to campus 6 times now. He's taken an official visit. They brought him to the Elite Junior Day and Mario Cristobal's pool party the other month. They've been extremely consistent with him. They've talked to him more than any other program. But Florida State has been right there this entire time. Florida State recruited him from the beginning. They were his first Power 5 offer, and he really likes Patrick Surtain a lot. He noted that Florida State, them and Miami are kind of on different wavelengths right now. Florida State, on one hand, is coming off a 10-win season, and it seems like they're in position to put some DBs in the draft this next year. It seems like things are in really good shape there. It seems like Florida State has kind of arrived. On the other hand, Miami is a program that's still building. They had a horrible season last year. Their secondary was outright not good. But at the same time, Miami's home. He feels a natural connection there. He talked about how, whenever you're in the locker room, everybody there is, from the same place. Everybody's a South Florida guy. So you can connect with these guys really, really easily because, not to mention, so many of these guys, you walk in there and you go, oh man, didn't I play high school football against you? Don't I know you from 7-on-7? Didn't we work out with the same trainer or something like that? And so, he really does like that aspect a lot. And he is a believer that Mario Cristobal has the program on the up and up. He does believe that Miami is moving in the right direction. They're trending in the right way. And they've pushed all the right buttons as far as the message of stay home. We really want you here. We value you here. We think that you really can be a huge difference maker for us. And you're someone that we really like a lot. I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the difference between Patrick Surtain and Mario Cristobal and Jamal Adey. I really do think that this is going to be close. It felt like Miami led for a while. At first, it felt like Florida State led. Then it felt like Miami led. Now it feels like it's really, really tight, and it feels like this is really going to come down to the wire. He also said that he feels like his recruitment's kind of at the point where there's nothing really that any other school can do in this next week and a half or so before he makes his commitment. He feels like, he's kind of reached the point where every school has done as much as they can to recruit him. Nothing that a school is going to do in the next week and a half is going to really change the way that he looks at a program. Now he just really wants time to sit, think, talk to the people in his corner, and make sure that, he makes the decision that he definitely wants to make.
Izubee, it was Caleb Odom's final official visit. He made no secret that he thought that was a benefit to Miami. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I really do think Miami did a really good job with him this weekend, kind of having that last swing when he heads into his decision. He's a interesting guy, not an interesting guy, but he's really focused on certain things. Obviously, it looks like Alabama's kind of the team to beat right now. When I spoke with him, I said, "Hey, which official visit was the best that you had so far?" And he's like, "Alabama knocked out the park. RPM says Alabama's leading right now." But I really do think Miami kind of made a big impact on him going into his decision, which he plans to do in July. Obviously, I think it's kind of an uphill battle for the Hurricanes. Cody Waddell has been leading this recruitment. Mario Cristobal has had his hands in everything too. But I do think Miami gained some momentum towards, kind of pushing themselves towards the top of the list. But I do think it's going to be a fight to the end with him and just, being consistent with him, communicating with him. He said communication is one of the biggest things with him and just his bond with the coaching staff. So another interesting thing that he said too was before his trip to Alabama, he really didn't have a close, relationship with that staffer, not as strong, and kind of that trip really strengthened it. And when I kind of asked him a similar question to that this weekend, he said his relationship with the Hurricanes really, really grew. So really want to see where his head's at, kind of leading into that commitment. But Miami does have that final, final pitch, going into that decision. So I think Miami could surprise people here, but I'm not going to, put all my eggs in one basket with Caleb Odom.
All right, the quarterback, Judd Anderson, spent most of his weekend working on Jeremiah Smith because he knows, obviously, that a quarterback's only as good as the guys that he's able to throw the football to. And just put some closing thoughts together here on Jeremiah Smith. We talked about him already in the show. But, yeah, he will be looking to see something from Shannon Dawson's offense, and he's going to be looking for some development of the Miami receivers. Miami feels confident that they are going to show him good things this fall. They love Shannon's offense. They love the way Tyler Van Dyke is picking it up. They love the way that the receivers are performing in off-season workouts. They feel that this will be a significantly improved offense when you factor in a better offensive line on top of it. But that is going to have to come first. They are going to have to do their job. And you know what? That is okay, because we are talking about Michael Irvin here. We are talking about Andre Johnson here. Jeremiah Smith is that type of recruit, okay? And he deserves the standard of excellence that he is looking for in the school that he picks. So, me personally, I think it's great. I think he's doing a great job managing his recruitment. I think if Miami does its job and shows him and his family the things that they are looking for as the football season unfolds, then they will have a chance to flip him from Ohio State. So we will obviously continue to cover that every step of the way. All right. So this was not the only thing going on this weekend, believe it or not, all these official visits. The Miami staff went from official visit mode to camp mode like that on Sunday morning. Okay. By 9 a.m, when Izubee and I rolled onto campus and started observing what was going on with the camp, I mean, there were hundreds of kids lined up outside the indoor practice facility. I mean, it was an unbelievable turnout. Izubee, it probably went a little longer than you wished it had. I mean, it was literally dinner time before the final 7-on-7 game. There were 25 7-on-7 teams from South Florida that came down to the U on Sunday to play 7-on-7 games. They had a lightning delay, which screwed the whole thing up. They had to go to abbreviated games. Finally finished it all in time for dinner. Izubee, why don't you sum up the final Mario Cristobal camp day and the level of competition in the 7-on-7 and what stood out to you?
Yeah, I would definitely say Mario Cristobal saved the best for last with this crop of schools that he brought in, from Miami Central to Christopher Columbus to Jones coming out of Orlando. Just a lot of really good teams that were out there yesterday, and kind of took by surprise that obviously, Orlando Jones came out on top, but they really surprised me with the guys that they had. They came in with a few 3-stars, a few I think one 4-star. Obviously, they're a good team, but everyone put their faith in Columbus is going to win this, Miami Central is going to win this. But I was really, really surprised how Jones came out and shocked everyone. They had a really, really good receiver that kind of blew me away. His name is Rennell Brown III, currently unranked. Another site has him as a 3-star, but he was easily the best prospect at this camp. In the championship game against Miami Central, I think they put 5 different defenders on him, and he scored 4 touchdowns. So, they threw everything at him, and he was just very impressed. But honestly, a very good turnout for Miami. They had 5-star 2025 defensive lineman Armando Blunt, who I spoke with him there. That kid is just a beast. Going to be a real big guy for Miami the next time we're going to focus on. And then a couple other new offers sprinkled out. A couple guys from American Heritage stood out. That was another big program there that kind of, showed out a little bit, but struggled because they're a younger team. But just all around, I feel like Miami saved the best for last, like I said, with this 7-on-7 and offensive defensive lineman camp.
Okay, and a couple other notes. LaWayne McCoy, he's committed to Florida State. He plays for Miami Central. He was out there competing, so Miami coaches got the chance to get a real good look at him. Had some great moments, had some not so great moments. I was kind of shocked when I was watching Central play American Heritage at how well the American Heritage DBs kept him locked down. I was expecting a little bit different, but then there were other games during the day where LaWayne, was a big time performer and was certainly getting plenty of attention from the Miami staff, no doubt about it, that they want him. So we'll see what happens as that recruitment goes forward, if they can flip him from Florida State. In the middle of all this, we had Izubee take a road trip on Friday up to IMG headquarters up in Bradenton, where Under Armour was having their Future 50 camp. And Izubee got a chance to talk to a lot of the top 2025 kids there. We brought you some of that coverage over the weekend, and we will continue bringing you more of it this week here as Izubee finds time to sit down and unpack his notebook. But Izubee, before we go here today, just give us a general impression of the Future 50 camp up there at IMG.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I mean, you mentioned that July barbecue, if a guy Miami's really serious about, they're going to be there. And there were a few names that I was very, very surprised when I asked, hey, what's the interest level like in Miami? They're like, oh, yeah, I'll be there in July for the barbecue. And one was 5-star Alabama commit Ryan Williams, the number 1 wide receiver in the 2025 class. And obviously he picked up a Miami offer, has over 40 offers, I believe. So I just threw out the question, like, is there any interest in Miami? He's like, yeah, I plan on going down there in July. And that was kind of the common theme, Miami building these relationships with these top 2025 guys. Ryan Williams was one. Nashawn Montgomery, a local guy out of West Palm Beach, was another. And just, most of the guys I spoke with, a lot of them actually planned on being at the Legends camp as well Thursday, but couldn't make it for the Future 50 camp. But expect a lot of big names at that barbecue from the 2025 class. Miami's kind of, silently doing their work with that class. They have a lot of interest in some of these guys that, I personally didn't think Miami was kind of pushing for, but that July barbecue is going to be very, very big for the 2025 class as well. And, I think Miami's kind of, putting the right foot forward, recruiting elite guys in the 2025 class, after going to the Future 50 and talking to kind of the stars of tomorrow.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this morning for Good Morning CaneSport. Hope we didn't overwhelm you guys with information today. There's so much going on. If you like this show, like this YouTube channel, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us build our audience through the algorithms of YouTube. And like I said earlier in the show, more than anything, please make sure you are a subscriber to CaneSport.com so that we can continue to enhance your fan experience. So for Izubee Charles, Stephen Wagner, and Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you once again, everybody, and we will see you next time.